Do you need to calm down about DeAndre Swift after Thursday night, or is he now the man? I'm Joe Dolan, and this is the Fantasy Points morning lineup for Saturday, September 16th, 2023. This is the last time I'm doing this disclaimer. The Fantasy Points morning lineup will air every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday morning during the NFL season, and I'm going to set a fantasy lineup with some of the most relevant fantasy news on these days. So make sure you smash that like button to stay up to date. Any stats you hear in this program will be from the Fantasy Points data suite, unless otherwise noted. The data suite is currently 75% off for the 2023 NFL season over at fantasypoints.com, and you can check it out with a free 7-day trial. You can also subscribe to any fantasy content package with code GURIFIC25. Just replace the first two letters in terrific with GU for a major discount. Now, starting at quarterback for the Texans this week might not be CJ Stroud. Texans added Stroud to the injury report on Friday with a throwing shoulder injury, and he is officially listed as questionable. Now, Houston already has 3 starting offensive linemen on injured reserve, and left tackle Laramie Tunsil, their only good lineman left, is questionable with a knee injury. So maybe it'd be wise for the Texans to sit Stroud against a pretty good Colts front. Now, for fantasy, this doesn't really move the needle because, well, the Texans stink, and Davis Mills might be able to get the ball to Nico Collins and Robert Woods anyway. But if you feel worse about starting Dameon Pierce, say, in the backfield, I don't blame you. At running back, we are all Swifties. It's a love story between fantasy football players and DeAndre Swift, who filled the blank space left behind in the Eagles' backfield when Kenny Gainwell was ruled out with a rib injury on Thursday night. Swift carried the ball 28 times for a career-high 175 yards and a score in a win against the Vikings. Now, never in Swift's wildest dreams could he have imagined his Eagles debut in his hometown of Philadelphia would go this way, and it's fantastic for fantasy since the Eagles' offensive line got back to its road-grading ways in Week 2. Now, we know all too well about Swift's injury history, so we shouldn't expect Swift to get this heavy a workload going forward, but there's going to be some bad blood between Eagles fans and Nick Sirianni if the less explosive Gainwell resumes the bell cow role he had in Week 1. I simply think Swift's style fits the Eagles' big play hunting offense more. Now, remember how I mentioned here on Thursday about Nick Sirianni being a notorious squeaky wheel greaser, which made me excited about Swift? Keep that in mind next Monday night against the Buccaneers, as I bet A.J. Brown will be peppered with targets following his mini tantrum on the sidelines this week. Now let's check in on a few running back injuries. In Los Angeles, Austin Eckler missed practice all week with an ankle sprain, one our Dr. Edwin Porras fears could be of the high ankle variety, and Eckler is doubtful this week. Now, Joshua Kelce had 16 carries and a score last week and is one of Austin Eckler's favorite players, as he mentioned on the Fantasy Points podcast this offseason, so he should be rostered in all leagues, though he does draw a tough matchup against the Titans' run defense, which was the best run defense in the NFL last year and stifled Jamal Williams last week. Now, that being said, I still consider Kelce a solid running back too, though I do expect this will be a big week for Justin Herbert and the Chargers' passing game. Kelce probably will need a touchdown, or 2 perhaps, to really come through for fantasy. The Colts' Zach Moss should be rostered in all leagues. Deion Jackson was awful in Week 1, and Evan Hull is on IR. Moss, coming off an arm injury, is on the RB2 radar this week, and he is off the injury report and will play. The game flow should be in his favor, as Houston will have trouble scoring whether or not Stroud plays this week. Now, the Jets are listing running back Breece Hall as questionable with a knee injury, though that's likely just pain management. He will still be on a pitch count this week, per Robert Saleh, and against the Cowboys defense with Zach Wilson starting, he's more of a mid to low running back too, though he obviously, as we saw last week, can make your fantasy day happy with just one run. Also worth monitoring is the Packers' Aaron Jones, who missed practice all week and is listed as questionable. Jones injured his hamstring on a long touchdown reception against the Bears in Week 1, but claimed after the game it was more of a bite than a pull of his hamstring. Still, it looked like he's trending towards not playing. A.J. Dillon was bad in Week 1, but would have big-time value against the Falcons if Jones can't play. Now, per Zach Jacobson of CBS Sports, Jones' hamstring absolutely creates an opportunity for Emmanuel Wilson to play in Atlanta, Matt LaFleur says. Quote from LaFleur, he would be the next man up. If that's the case, he'll be ready to go. Wilson is an undrafted rookie out of Fort Valley State who should at least be on the deep dynasty radar. And at wide receiver, let's go through a list of injuries. The Packers' Christian Watson was upgraded to a limited participant in Friday practice, though he's still listed as questionable with a hamstring injury on Sunday. Romeo Doubs was limited in practice this week with his hamstring injury, though he played in week 1 and scored twice while on a pitch count of around half the offensive snaps. The fact that Doubs doesn't have a game day designation is a good sign, and his role could increase in week 2 against the Falcons whether or not Watson plays. Per Jordan Rodrigue of The Athletic, Puka Nacua was limited in practice on Friday and listed as questionable with an oblique injury, but the Rams believe this week's hot waiver wire pickup will play on Sunday with the injury he picked up this week in practice. The rookie had 10 catches in his NFL debut, and if you picked him up, you're probably starting him as a wide receiver 3 against the 49ers, though I'd understand giving it a week since it's a nasty defensive matchup. Now, in more good news, it looks like Jerry Jeudy for the Broncos will make his season debut in Week 2, as Coach Sean Payton said he was close to playing in Week 1, and Jeudy does not have a game day designation for Week 2. I'd fire him up as a wide receiver 3 with upside against the Commanders this week. The Raiders will have Davante Adams this weekend against the Bills. He missed practice earlier this week with a foot injury, and I'll anticipate he'll catch a shadow from cornerback Tre'Davious White, just as he did last week from Patrick Surtain. The Bills are further incentivized to do so since Jacoby Myers remains in the concussion protocol and is doubtful this week. And the Titans are listing DeAndre Hopkins as questionable with an ankle injury, and like Austin Eckler, Dr. Porras said there could be some fear for a high ankle given Hopkins didn't practice all week. If he doesn't go, Chigakonkwo and Treylon Burks would see more volume against a Chargers defense that hemorrhaged passing yards to the Dolphins last week. And at tight end, might we have actual production this week? Travis Kelce will play Sunday barring any setback with his injured knee per Andy Reid. That's from Sam McDowell of the Kansas City Star. Now, Kelce kind of taunted reporters on Friday by pretending to grab his knee and then immediately dropping into a twerk, as Travis Kelce is wont to do. Yes, if he goes, you're playing him this week against the Jaguars. That goes without saying. Now, Mark Andrews, the number 2 tight end via ADP, who missed last week with a quad injury, is questionable to play this weekend against the Bengals, but he fully practiced on Friday, which means I am expecting him to go, and yes, I would fire him up too. Thanks for joining me for the Fantasy Points morning lineup. Remember to subscribe to the Fantasy Points channel for more fantasy football content. Hit that like button if you like this video, and heck, hit it even if you didn't like the video because it helps me. And comment if you enjoyed, or comment if you didn't enjoy, because that helps me too. And you can catch me over at fantasypoints.com. Use code GURIFIC25 and join our subscriber Discord to chat with me. Good luck this weekend, everybody.